Okay, so something that we hear from our clients pretty often is, all right, Juan, what type of things should we do to the house? I was actually thinking of doing this and that and the other because I know, it's going to raise the value of the property and then we're going to be able to sell for a lot more. And frankly, more often than not, it's not quite the case. So unless you're an investor and you're literally in the business of buying, fixing, and selling, if you're just selling your property, and in most cases, people are selling as is, I'm probably going to suggest that you do the bare minimum. And it's not about being mediocre. It's about being practical. It's about helping you keep as much money in your pocket and make as much money as possible instead of wasting it, right? So let me give you some examples on some of the things that I would focus on if I was, probably selling your property. So one is definitely the exterior appearance, right? So for instance, pressure washing the driveway if you need to, right? Having the landscaper come every 2 weeks once we start the selling process, right? Before selling and while we are marketing it, have the landscaper come every couple of weeks so that the grass always looks, relatively freshly cut, right? Not so long that it looks abandoned, right? Painting the exterior of the property and just touching up the trim and the exterior of the property, because those are typically the first things that they're literally the curb appeal of the property. Maybe some mulch around the trees, right? Pressure washing the roof, maybe, if depending on the type of roof that you have. And I would always advise a soft wash, all right? Nothing so hard where we do more harm than good when it comes to the roof, right? Sometimes when somebody's pressure washing, they'll crack some tiles inadvertently, and then they create some leaks, and then we have another problem. So if anything, maybe just soft washing the roof if it looks really dirty, right? That's about as far as I would go. In the backyard, the same thing, just landscaping, pressure washing the patio if necessary, and making it nice and clean and neat overall, right? Painting maybe the mailbox, right? The entrance to the property, the front door. Just, again, the bare minimum. As far as the interior of the property, I would advise, assuming that you're selling a property that's maybe a little bit older or that it's been lived in for quite a while, is, if possible, painting the interior of the property, or at least touching it up so that it doesn't look old and stained and, right, like sometimes happens. Also, replacing some of the outlets if they're older, right? If your property is, let's say, from the 80s or 90s or 2000s, and the outlets haven't been replaced in 20 years, then it's a fresh look. It's kind of, I always say that it's kind of like getting a fresh haircut, right? Like a manicure, right? It just, everything comes in, through the eyes for the buyers. And those fixtures make a big difference, right? When people go to turn on the switches, if it's old and dirty and painted over, it's not a good look, right? But if it's clean and neat and fresh and new, it really makes a huge difference. Also, the trim, make sure that the trim is nice and sharp and, and painted. Now, outside of that, some of the fixtures possibly, like vanities, like lamps, like, again, inexpensive things, that would be a plus. And definitely decluttering, right? The general rule with decluttering is that you can probably easily get rid of 50% of the stuff. Now, without scaring you, it's because it creates more room, more space, right? If you walk into a walk-in closet and it's so full with, like wall-to-wall garments and clothing and jackets and all sorts of stuff, and then boxes of shoes that are just packed, you can't quite appreciate the size of the closet. So that's something that would help. Now, if you can't do any of this, don't worry about it. We could still sell your property. We're just gonna, have to factor that in, and buyers are going to, again, factor that in too. The reason that I'm suggesting some of these things is that the difference in perceived value in some of these things is easily 2, 3, 4, 5 times the amount of that it actually costs, right? For instance, the exterior paint, if it costs you, I don't know, $3,000 to paint the exterior of the property, it literally would reflect in easily $10,000 or $15,000 worth of perceived value in a buyer's mind. It's no different than going to go buy a car. If the car is muddy and dirty and clearly hasn't been, vacuumed on the inside or detailed, or, and the wheels on the outside are muddy and the tires are dirty, that's not the same as that exact same car having been completely cleaned, vacuumed, detailed, and the tires looking shiny, right? The perceived value between one or the other is easily, thousands of dollars. And so on a house, you can imagine how it's that much more important. So anyway, if you have any other questions around some of these topics, please let me know. We'll have a conversation around it. Again, feel free to reach out to us and we can give you some tips. I can pass by your property, tell you what you could do, what you shouldn't do, what's not worth doing, and we can take it from there. So anyway, hope you find this helpful. Let me know if you have any other questions about this, and I will see you in another video.